Brent joins us on a regular basis from First Coast News and also College Sports Today. Brent, I've got one question for you that's a broad question that I enjoy getting your perspective on these type of questions. I saw an article posted on ESPN.com the other day in their college football section wanting to know who would be the next Clemson. I didn't have an Insider Plus subscription to go in and take the deep dive, but I get the point. You know,
Yeah.
I lost those privileges a few months ago, Brent, when I quit that place. So
yes,
but I get the point. So to me, that means, okay, who's going to be the next Clemson? So they're not saying the next Ohio State or the next Alabama, because they're known factors forever and have been at the top of the hill. So I'm not even thinking USC qualifies, or Texas or Nebraska or Penn State, because they've been elite. It's kind of that program that has the capability to be elite, but has never been elite. And I gave it a scan across the nation, and I came up with Texas A&M.
Well, I was about to say the same thing, and matter of fact, I'll give you two more in the conference and give you a general with all three of them. I would agree with A&M. I think at this point, Jimbo is in. He has been there long enough to where he has set his own roster. And the smart thing that Jimbo has really done, he's going to have a good offense and particularly good quarterback like Kellen Mond and Isaiah Spiller, for instance, at running back. But what they've really done now is to beef up their line of scrimmage, and particularly the defensive line. And that I think is what makes a real difference with them. And I'll throw another two in there. I think Georgia may be on the verge of that with the way they've been able to recruit. Now, again, Georgia's tasted some of the glory, but not quite to the point Alabama has. They've been in the national championship game. They've won SEC's individual titles. And maybe Florida has, or is beginning to a little bit. And I'm going to go back to something that I heard about 3 to 5 years ago. And this, I'll give Tom Luganbill credit for this. Tom being obviously at ESPN, who is their recruiting guy. One of the things that Tom said that made a lot of sense, and he said at that point, there are three schools right now, Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State, who you could say are the elite programs. Now, again, you put Alabama on another level, even with the other two probably. But to our point here, Tom said the reason that these three schools stick out among the others is they have made a total commitment to football. And what he meant by that is, and this is not being disparaging when you compare this, but he said they made a total commitment from the school president down to the custodial staff to support football. And when you really think about that, that makes a lot of sense. And that goes with the facilities, it goes with the recruiting and the whole 9 yards. And I think that's something that you're beginning to see in some of these other schools, because they've got the resources, the money, and I think the commitment and the passion in order to do it. Now, can they bring that out? But Mark, that's a great point. I would certainly go with A&M next, Georgia, and then Florida. Florida's still working on some facilities that they've really gotten to get done, like these football-only buildings. And I'm telling you, if people don't think that makes a difference, it truly does. So I think that's the next step in getting some of these other schools to be able to join the Alabamas of the world.
I discounted Georgia and Florida to a certain extent because I just considered them having climbed that mountain previously. Of course, Urban Meyer, Steve Spurrier at Florida, Georgia, Vince Dooley with a great run that they had. Sure. Just thinking Texas A&M's been a great tradition as a football program, but you talk about a 7-5, 8-4 program forever. Now, of course, they've had their quick spikes, but basically they've been winning 7 and 8 games for decades and
Sure.
nothing more, even though they have a passionate, rabid fan base, tons of facilities, tons of money. They're sitting right in the middle of Texas. And now they've got a guy who's won a national championship, who knows how to get there. I just think it's all right there for the taking.
Well, in nationwide, it really makes you wonder too. Would a Minnesota under PJ Fleck, if he was there long enough and had enough support and resources, could they ever get several levels above where they are now? Now, I say this from a recruiting standpoint and resources. Mark, how far is Oregon away from what we're talking about? And now, look, Minnesota, I understand, is probably going to be a while to go for that, but I don't think Oregon is. I think Oregon's realistic. But do you? I mean, when you've got the support that they have got, now again, I think if Oregon was in another conference, that might help them right now, because that conference is really struggling. Besides Washington, can't get anyone in the playoffs at this point. But I would say from the support they get from Nike and the support that and the job that he is doing in recruiting, and I mean, would it take them that long, Mark, and that many steps up before they could be in some rarefied air too?
Well, you can look at that conference situation two different ways. It's either a plus or a minus. Yeah, they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt to make the playoff, but they're going to have the much easier path. And maybe they do truly become the Clemson, because that's what Clemson's doing right now.
Right.
Is they're beating a bunch of 7 and 5 teams to get to an ACC championship, and there's no competition. Outside of USC, nobody can really present a challenge to Oregon right now if they maximize what they're doing right now, which is, like you say, they're recruiting better than anyone in the conference. They have the facilities, they have the backing, the money. They apparently have the coach in play who's doing a fine job. Yeah, they could be the one to match what Clemson's doing on the East Coast.
But I don't see any, as we get this a little closer to home here, I don't see anyone besides Clemson in the ACC who's in that group. I mean, I appreciate what Mac Brown's doing at North Carolina. He certainly lit a fire under them in recruiting, and Sam Howell there. And I think the job that they have done, I really thought Justin Fuentes might be able to take Virginia Tech to the next level beyond where they are at this point too. I still think Mike Norvell could get FSU back to some level of prominence. It won't be where Bowden was when he was there, but I look at that. But look, I'm back and dovetail with what you said a few minutes ago. You've got Clemson right now with the recruiting, the resources, facilities, and so forth. And frankly, Mark, no one is even close at this point, and we cover that conference pretty closely, and really don't see anybody else even emerging over the next 2 or 3 years. Now, time will tell, but right now, unfortunately, it's still Clemson, and that's it.